Roundtable Sports Network brings you NFL divisional debate coverage on a weekly basis from your favorite content creators across YouTube, featuring the AFC East Roundtable live Monday and Wednesday evenings, the AFC South Roundtable live Tuesdays at 7 p.m. EST, the NFC South Roundtable live Tuesdays at 7 p.m. EST, the NFC West Roundtable live Tuesdays at 9 p.m. EST. The AFC West Roundtable live Tuesdays at 9 p.m. EST. The NFC North Roundtable live Wednesdays at 6 p.m. EST. The AFC North Roundtable live Wednesdays at 6 p.m. EST. The NFC East Roundtable live Thursdays at 6 p.m. EST. Roundtable Sports. Real coverage from real fans.
What is going on, Roundtable Sports, and welcome back into another episode here of Draftaholics on the main hub here for Roundtable Sports. My name is Colby Cochran, your host here today, here with my co-host Broshmo and Derek. You guys know him. You guys love him. Here with episode 4 of Draftaholics. Guys, we are already now 4 episodes in with the launch of Draftaholics. Absolutely amazing. Massive shout out to everybody who's continuously come in, shown their love, supported, subscribed to Roundtable Sports because of Draftaholics, liked the video, maybe shared it with some friends. Without you guys, we're literally just a couple of dudes talking to each other on a live stream. That means absolutely nothing. So thank you for helping give us purpose. And I think you guys are going to say, isn't there usually 4 of you? And there usually is. Now, Dose of Dion, unfortunately, did have some other business he did have to get to. He might come in later. We'll see. But nonetheless, he did still give us his list. So either way, whether he's here or not, we are still going to break down Dose of Dion's list later on in today's video. But fellas, before we start today's video, let's go around the table. Let's see how we're doing. Broshmo, how we feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. We're so close to Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, and just full-on draft season. I love it.
Full-on draft season, baby. That's where it gets fun too, right? I feel like now that more teams are getting eliminated, the regular season is finally over. This is where people start to pay a little bit more attention to the draft. All eyes are on the draft. Now, I feel like when the season ends, it goes draft, then free agency. Everybody's interest when the new league year starts goes right to free agency. Oh, yeah. And then once that second wave of free agency is done, it's immediately back to the draft. So this is the time and the place to be for everything involving the 2025 NFL draft. And Broshmo too, just like me, just like Richie, just like Dan, you are also going to be at the Senior Bowl in a couple of short weeks.
That's right. It's going to be my first time actually personally down there. Get to cross that off my bucket list.
Hey, man, me too. We got that. And like I told you guys, we got Radio Row. We got me, we got Richie, we got Dan, we got TD representing Roundtable Sports at the Super Bowl this year. Live coverage will be here on Roundtable Sports. So make sure you guys stay tuned for some exclusive content. But like I said, I'm going too. So me and Broshmo, we're going to be connecting. We're going to have to get you guys some exclusive content for Draftaholics at Roundtable Sports, baby. We are stepping things up. Derek, man, I told you before we started, this is Christmas. This is Christmas for Derek, guys. Derek told us when we hopped on, he's like, I'm not going to lie, I forgot we had a show today. And I was like, Derek, what do you mean? This is your favorite position in this draft class. Since we started this show, Derek was like, man, when are we doing tight ends? We got to get to tight ends. Tight ends are the best position in this draft class. And then an hour before our show starts, Derek's in our group chat like, guys, let's freaking go. Today is the day. Are you guys ready? So, Derek, this just feels like it was the day made for you.
Dude, it feels like Christmas. Exactly. Getting ready to talk about this group. I think I have a little bit of vested interest in this group because, that's all Colts Nation can really talk about right now is the tight end position. There's one player in particular that we will discuss that Colts Nation has stamped as the future Colt that they want on their team. May not exactly be the number one that I have, but I can't wait to talk about this group, man. I'm excited.
So do you think that there's potential that the Colts go tight end in the first round? And would you as a Colts fan want to see them go tight end in the first round for a class that has so much depth?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that the two guys at the top are tier 1. And then I think that there's 2 or 3 guys that are at that tier 2 level. Now, obviously, we as Colts fans have been seeing the Indianapolis Colts get these tight ends time and time again. And we keep bringing in all these subpar tight ends that aren't doing anything to amplify this offense. And I really feel that there are only two guys that the Indianapolis Colts can utilize to make them have a great offense again. And that's why I have those two guys as, someone that I would want to get in the first or second round. Outside of that, the rest of the tight ends, I'm not saying that they won't do well in the NFL. I just think specifically for the Indianapolis Colts and the position that they're in, they need an elite guy right away. And I think there's a couple here, and I'll be sure to let y'all know about it.
Yeah, guys, something I would love to start doing too when we talk about these prospects, and I just thought about this now, is maybe even throw out some teams that these prospects might realistically go to that maybe they would be the best fit for. So that's something that we can start doing here with the tight ends. Hopefully you guys can hear me well. Hopefully I'm not lagging too much. I got a bit of a snowstorm going on outside right now, so hopefully it doesn't mess with my connection too much. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into what the people came for, and that is these lists. Like I said, Derek, we are going to start with you. So let's pull up Derek's list, and then let's figure out the best way to showcase this. Guys, we're gonna out.
See, this hurts when it doesn't have when we don't have Dion here.
Exactly. Dion's not here. It works perfectly with 4 squares, and Dion messed it up. So thanks, Dion. You threw us off. But Derek, this is your top 5. Go ahead, break this down for us.
Yeah, so just for disparity here between the number 1 and number 2, I talked with Colby and the other guys and saying it literally last week that this is not actually 1 and 2 for me. This is 1A, 1B for me when it comes to Harold Fannin Jr. of Bowling Green State University versus Tyler Warren from Penn State. I look at both of these players and say, these are both number 1s. These are guys that are going to come into the league, and whichever system they go into, they are going to immediately make a huge impact offensively for whatever team drafts them. So for 1A, I had to go Harold Fannin Jr. here. And listen, there was a lot of debate on who should have won the tight end of the year award in college this last year. I felt that Harold Fannin Jr. was robbed of that choice. I know that Tyler Warren is in a much more big university. There's a lot more wide range. There's a lot more understanding of Tyler Warren's game. But I will just say again, boys, Harold Fannin Jr. beats Tyler Warren in almost every statistical category. And the fact that he did not win the award for best tight end in college football this last year is definitely a ripoff, simply because he's from Bowling Green and the fact that he's newer to the position and he doesn't have as much understanding of his game. Harold Fannin started his high school career as a safety, guys. He was a safety and then transitioned to wide receiver towards the end of that career, and even came into Bowling Green as a wide receiver to start out. And then, you see guys that, transition from the wide receiver room to the tight end quite often. Some guys put on quite a bit of weight. Some guys grow a little bit and, they move on. Like, G. Scott for Ohio State, he was a 4-star wide receiver coming out of high school. And sure enough, he got a little bigger, and then he proceeded to, get moved to the tight end spot because that's where he would fit. But Harold Fannin has taken off from where he was to what he has become. This last year, 117 catches for almost 1,600 yards. It was a tight end record in college, man. Like, no tight end has ever accomplished what Harold Fannin did this year Also had 10 receiving touchdowns, the most in college football. And then you want to add in a couple of rushing touchdowns here and there as well. He actually even had 4 rushing touchdowns his freshman year at BGSU when he was still a wide receiver. So, I mean, this is a guy that you can line up anywhere. He gets put everywhere in the position. And that's where Tyler Warren also has that advantage, but with one exception. Tyler Warren, you're not lining up on the outside in the wide receiver position. You can line Harold Fannin outside, not in the slot, outside wide receiver positions. That's where you can put him at, because he has that athletic ability to do that. He has the understanding of it because he was once a wide receiver himself. He has tremendous hands. He's got great contestability. And on top of it, you see the yards after the catch. He may not be the most athletic tight end that we've ever seen. That's fine. But you'll notice the amount of broken tackles. And, you know, it's funny because he's only 6'4" and he's only 230 pounds, which is about the same size that Brock Bowers was, give or take about 5 pounds when he came into the league. I would argue that Brock Bowers might be a slightly better athlete than Harold Fannin, but Harold Fannin breaks tackles, dude. I mean, the yards after catch and the fighting through contact, this dude embraces it, and Tyler Warren definitely does too. And I'm telling you, it's why these guys are so neck and neck. You can get these yards after catch. You can get these big plays, and you're going to get it from both of these guys. Tyler Warren, again, 6'5", 6'6", actually, about 55 pounds, but yet still a very good athlete, a guy that works his ass off blocking. And I mean, he is an all-around complete player. And I would argue, I think his fundamentals at times in the blocking becomes an issue. I think due to the fact that he's so much bigger than most of the people that he's blocking, he tends to have a little bit of a fundamental problem. Now, obviously, people will use that as an excuse against Fannin because he's a little bit smaller than your traditional tight end. And they're wondering, is that going to be an issue when blocking defensive ends or blocking linebackers coming off the end? It could very well be. We'll have to continue to look at the Senior Bowl stuff and maybe like some combine and some pro day stuff. But I don't think that is going to be an issue, considering the fact Harold Fannin Jr., if you want to give PFF any credit for this, PFF did have Harold Fannin Jr. as a better blocker than Tyler Warren. Actually, Fannin was actually graded as the best blocking tight end in college football compared to them. So, again, Harold Fannin, for me, why he's 1A versus Tyler Warren 1B is I think this is the direction of the NFL, is you're trying to find these somewhere in between a big wide receiver and a small tight end. You're trying to find that balance where these guys start becoming wide receivers. It's not enough nowadays to have a big body tight end that's good at blocking. That's not the thing anymore. You have to have a tight end that's going to make big plays down the stretch. Look at George Kittle. Look at Travis Kelce. Look at Brock Bowers and what he did in his first year with the Raiders when he didn't even have a quarterback, right? So those are the types of things that offenses are looking for now. And I think Harold Fannin fits that perfectly in this sort of circumstance. Now, again, with Tyler Warren, again, my 1B, I could see this guy being the number 1, and most people do have him as the number 1, especially Colts fans. Colts fans really want Tyler Warren. I think they think of him as a Dallas Clark type tight end, which, again, if you know anything about Colts history, if you're even just a regular guy that understands some of the best tight ends that the NFL's ever seen, Dallas Clark is up there. Tyler Warren definitely has reminiscence of that to his game. So that's why these two guys, they're neck and neck. They could easily be the number 1 for me. Number 3 is when it starts to go down a little bit for me. Colston Loveland, again, I think most people would have had him as the number 1 if they probably would have had him at the number 1 if he didn't get injured and had better quarterback play. Michigan's quarterbacking was absolutely god awful over the last year, trying to get him the football and obviously dealing with some of the lower ankle injuries that he's had, which is something you have to keep an eye out for. And, he's had a few drop issues in the past, but again, being 6'6" and 250 pounds, again, just another big body guy, but he is a great route runner. Someone that, again, if you can work through the drops, if you can get his hands better, he's 100% going to be a very good tight end wherever he ends up. Number 4, I got to go Mason Taylor here. I went Mason Taylor over Gunnar Helm, mainly for the fact that you have Mason, who is actually just a little bit bigger than Gunnar Helm, but actually a quite a bit better athlete, in my opinion. Overall, just I think a much more profound athlete and receiver at the position than Gunnar Helm. I just think Mason, if you look at the statistics over the last few years, the statistics aren't quite as good as Gunnar Helm's from a touchdown perspective, but I think you've seen him jump a little bit more this last year than Gunnar Helm has. But I have him at number 4 for that, just because he's slightly better athlete. And again, Gunnar Helm came into a system with a bunch of good quarterbacks, a good head coach, and again, some good quarterbacks to look into it. But it does concern me a little bit with Gunnar Helm's athletic ability. And again, being 6'5" and 240, I mean, he's not that much small. I mean, he's a little bit bigger than Harold Fannin, but Harold Fannin is a much better athlete than Gunnar Helm. I'm just not sure how much higher the athletic side comes to, but that would be my top 5, boys. I love this group.
When it comes to Fannin, I'm assuming that you have a first-round grade on him?
I do have him as a first-round grade, but I have fully expected everyone to not take him in the first round. I truly don't, because there are very few times, guys, where we see, unless he balls out at the combine, unless he balls out at the pro day, I don't know if there's going to be a situation where a GM is going to be crazy enough to take a MAC tight end. Very rarely do MAC players get selected in the first round, let alone early in the first round. Because, I mean, when was the last time a skill position player got selected from the MAC that was very early and it turned out to be very promising? The last time that somebody did have that happen was Corey Davis. I believe that was 2016. Corey Davis's career didn't really turn out very good because he got drafted by the Tennessee Titans. I mean,
then went to the Jets
from there, but I mean, still, that very rarely happens. And, I think a lot of GMs don't want to deal with it. I think a lot of GMs will just say, hey, we have more understanding of Tyler Warren, because I know Tyler Warren's a first rounder. I'll be completely honest, boys. I think he might go top 10. I mean, I think legitimately he could get taken earlier than when the Indianapolis Colts want to take him. And I fear for that. I could even see a situation where if Loveland gets to test, I definitely think that he could potentially be a first rounder. But outside of that, I think the rest of these guys are second round guys. I really do. I don't think, with as gifted of a defensive class as this draft class is, I think there's the one position that I know is going to make an impact on this league for a long time, but it's just going to get dropped just because there's a lot of what ifs when it comes to these GM's decisions. So I do have Harold Fannin as a first round prospect. Will he get taken in the first round though? I don't think so.
Interesting. Yeah. So when it comes to Fannin, I personally have about a second to third round grade on him, but more so second. But you never know. just because I do feel like when it comes to deep classes, sometimes I've learned that teams are a little bit hesitant to take those guys early because they'll say, well, I want to go and I want to get a position that isn't necessarily as deep. Like for me personally, I'm not as big as, like the depth in the tackle class. So I could see teams try to target those guys earlier because maybe they don't like how it progresses throughout the draft. As we're with tight end, they kind of like how it progresses. Like with edge rush, they like how it progresses. So they know that they can get a difference maker later on, which is why, I could see him somewhere between second to third round. For me personally, the only two guys that I have in the first are Warren and Loveland, and then the rest, like you kind of alluded to, are second and third stringers. Broshmo, is that kind of the same instance for you when you look at these guys? What are your kind of rounded projections for them?
Yeah, for me, Tyler Warren's probably going to be a top 20 player for me. I entered the year, I had a top 50 grade, didn't expect to like him as much as I did. And I was like, golly, man, this dude can ball, man. He's a good athlete. He's a former quarterback.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Apparently he is a quarterback now. He can actually scramble better than most of them.
Yeah, right. Better than Drew Aller. Anywho, and then this season happened, and I was like, okay. That's dope. He's tight end one for me. But Loveland, he just brings so much about his game reminds me of Dalton Kincaid outside of some of the hands, the drop issues. I think he got better on his focus drops. It was just for him, play strength, man. He needs to get stronger. He gets to the contested catch and he gets bodied. I think he had a 20% contested catch rate this year. So, I mean, if you're looking for more of a receiving option, I do think that Loveland provides a bit more of a receiving upside as a pass catcher compared to Warren, but Warren's more of this all-around package, great after contact. But yeah, outside of that, I think I would say that I have two more tight ends that are fringe top 50.
That's fair. That's fair. So Anthony asks a few good questions real quick. I do want to get into. Shout out to Anthony for being very, very active in the chat right now. But he says, Derek, why do you have I'm
messaging him in the chat as we're sitting here. I'm talking to him. I'm like, no, it's technically 1A, 1B. Right now. That's what I'm saying here. Again, I give Harold Fannin the edge over Tyler just mainly because of one thing. Because I think that it's the direction of the NFL to get someone that is a little bit smaller like Fannin who can run the route tree the way that he does and be able to just get those yards after catch, line him up anywhere you want to. There's no limitation to Harold Fannin. You can line him up in the Wildcat for all you want to. You can do that same thing with Tyler Warren. We've seen Penn State do it. But again, like I mentioned before, Tyler, you're not lining up on the outside. Defenses have to account for the fact that Fannin can line up anywhere on the field. And I think Fannin's just a slightly better athlete, slightly in some areas. And I think their games are so similar. They both are insane with yards after catch. They both fight through contact. They both have great hands. They're both really good blockers. There's nothing that really sets these two apart for me. That's why I have them as that.
Fair. So Anthony also asks another good question. He says, thoughts on Helm, and do you think that he would be a perfect fit for Mike McDaniel's scheme in Miami? And then later on, he even says, which of these tight ends do you think would be a good fit for Mike McDaniels in Miami? Me personally, I feel like, go back to the Mike Gesicki days, right? Mason Taylor, you want a receiving threat? Might as well just go Mason Taylor at that point. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like if that's what they want, if Miami, Mike McDaniels, they want to go back to this passing offense, they don't care about the tight end's ability to block. If that really does end up being the case, then I feel like Mason Taylor would be your guy.
I feel like Fannin, just given what Jonnu Smith has done this year for the Dolphins, he's got one more year left on the contract.
Yeah.
Love a guy that can create after the catch. Fannin, 32 forced missed tackles this year. Utterly ludicrous. No other pass catcher has topped 30. So I feel like Fannin might be the guy if the Dolphins are looking.
And you're a Dolphins fan too, Broshmo. Is that who you want?
Fins up, baby. Fins up. I mean, if we were gonna go with the tight end, sure. I prefer that we didn't.
There's some other positions that are more important, huh?
There's some other areas we need to address.
I get that.
we don't have a guard on contract next year. So
Plus, Johnny
Here's the
Smith
thing,
had a great
too,
year for you.
and I think another thing that so enamors me about Harold Fannin is, again, I'm super high on him. I don't expect every other person to understand it or even feel the exact same way as me. But even with that, I sit here and say, if he is a second rounder, or hell, for somehow, some way, teams allow this guy to make it into the third round, if a team is stupid enough to let this guy fall to the third round, then whoever's getting him that late is literally getting the all-time greatest Christmas present you could possibly ever get. I mean, I feel so highly on him. I know it's probably going to take a little bit for some GMs to warm up to the idea, especially since I don't think there's a ton of teams right away that are going to be searching for a tight end that early. You know, it's just usually not a thing, but the tight end group is becoming just so much more useful in today's NFL. And with the fact that you have these 5 or 6 guys at the top of this class that are so good, maybe some of these teams will actually take a shot early.
Yeah, overall for me, I don't really have too much of a problem with the list. Now, me personally, I'm not as big on Fan, and it's not anything against him. I don't know if he's going to be, and I'll talk more about this when, my list comes along, but I don't know about him personally being like this true number one dual threat tight end who's your number one coverage dictating tight end. Like, I don't know if I see that exactly, but I think that he could be one of the best number 2 tight ends in the league. If he goes somewhere that knows how to utilize the tight ends, he goes somewhere that utilizes 12 personnel, those 2 tight end sets, I think he could be really good. Like, if for some reason Baltimore got rid of Andrews or they got rid of Isaiah Likely, I feel like he would be a perfect fit in that specific scheme. In fact, my comparison for him is kind of like an Isaiah Likely-esque type of player. So me personally, I do think that there are better tight ends. I don't necessarily see that ceiling at being a tight end one, but again, I do think that he can definitely be a very good tight end too. Certain packages, find ways to utilize him for sure. Broshmo, what do you think about the list?
It's a good list. It's a good list. I mean, I kind of like summed up my thoughts earlier. Yeah, almost. I think for me, like guys like Warren, Loveland, they're going to be first rounders. I think Taylor and Fannin are fringe top 50. After that, I think we're going to probably have like fringe 3rd, 4th round guys, but I think there's a good bunch there. There's a good collection of guys like Gunnar Helm's going to be one. Like for me, like Gunnar Helm, golly, dude just reminds me of Jared Wiley from last season. And I wasn't like the biggest Wiley guy, maybe Noah Gray, maybe more of a guy that we've actually seen in the NFL, seen his type of role. Cause I don't love Helm as a blocker necessarily. I think he's got fight to him, but I think there's times where he just gets bodied, but his nuance as a pass catcher, like might not be the fastest guy, but he understands where to find like the sweet spot, the soft spots in zone. He's shown ball skills. He's become like, honestly, Quinn Ewers is most dependable target in a wide receiving core that's just kind of been, well, Bond is hurt and who's going to step up? It's just kind of been this rotating door of who's going to be the guy until like Matthew Golden actually came in, stepped up there. It was Helm. So yeah, I like Helm. I like Helm quite a bit, but I feel like tight end 2, tight end 3 kind of love. Does that make sense?
Tight end 2, I could see it.
So not that high end like tight end 1. Yeah, this isn't the guy you're drafting saying, all right, he's gonna take over for our starter in a year or two, or can immediately become your starter.
Yeah, but I mean, those are the type of guys you're looking for in the 3rd, 4th round. Like guys that might have that upside, that
gadget players.
Yeah, contributors that could like come in from day one and do a little something. I think he's got a ton of special teams experience as well. Yeah, 600 some special team snaps. So he's going to be impacting the special team game as well. So big ups.
Do you guys think that Tyler Warren will fall out of the first round? No. I think you'll see as these lists go on.
Never. Unless he gets injured, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, he is. Listen, I know a lot of people will not agree with me on my Harold Fannin takes, but Tyler Warren is the one guy that everybody agrees is up there among the upper echelon of tight ends And I mean, in all honesty, you could maybe point to say could potentially be a better prospect than even Brock Bowers was coming out of the draft for some people. I mean, that's for some people. For some people, I'll point that out because Broshmo was about to.
I was going to zip my mouth.
Have you not about to put me in that?
Broshmo just
Some may say, not me.
You guys can't be a part of this show anymore.
Oh man,
dude, could you imagine Tyler Warren? Could you imagine this? Just think how scary this would be. Could you imagine that he fell? I guess he wouldn't have to fall that much, but to the Cincinnati Bengals, could you imagine him and Joe Burrow? That system, give him a little bit of an extra blocker, but also a receiving threat. He hasn't really had one at that tight end position. I know they brought in Mike Gesicki, but he's kind of mid. He's fell off. He's more of a receiving threat than anything else.
Gesicki had a big role when T. Higgins wasn't in the game. Like when he wasn't playing, Gesicki had some big. But
Gesicki to me is just like he is more of a big wide receiver, a versatile wide receiver that can play inline tight end, that can play slot, that can play outside. You know, like he should be your X receiver. He's not someone that's going to stay in and block at inline tight end if realistically you need him to,
or even play center like Tyler Warren.
There you go. Right. Hey guys, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. Let's get into Broshmo's list. But you guys let us know in the comment section below. What do you think about Derek's top 5 tight ends in the 2025 NFL draft? We want to hear from you. But Broshmo, this is your list. Why don't you break it down for us?
Yeah. So Tyler Warren, I got him at number 1, as most people will. And I mean, we've already said as much as we can about this guy. Ideal build, good athleticism. I loved his tape coming out of the summer, and then he just reinforced that tenfold with just breaking multiple records there at Penn State for the tight end position. Phenomenal year. Showed, honestly, one of my biggest quibbles with him coming into the year was like, oh man, his hands are so inconsistent. And then, okay, no, this man's just plucking the ball out of air now. Okay. I liked it. I like that. He's got that dog in him too. He might not be I think he's a solid blocker. Might not be one of the best blocking tight ends in this class, but with that frame and again, with that level of physicality he likes to play with and just him as a competitor, I don't mind it one bit. He's a top 20 prospect to me. And then Colson Loveland, I think, is the best receiving tight end in this class, or at least presents the best receiving upside. He is just a mismatch nightmare with just his athleticism, his speed, his ability to track the football. He's a more of a nuanced route runner, honestly, than you would expect from the tight end position. And again, some of the struggles this year came because of the quarterback. I think he struggled with, I think it was a shoulder injury, actually. I don't know if he had ankle injury down the stretch, but I know he had a shoulder injury coming out of that USC game. But yeah, to me, Dalton Kincaid, he feels like Dalton Kincaid, a guy that could go out and create separation and be a good security blanket. And then I think guys like Mason Taylor and Harold Fannin Jr. are these mid-day 2 fringe top 50 players. Mason Taylor gets the nod here because of the build. In all honesty, Harold Fannin's going to be a tough projection at 6'4", 230, where you exactly put in him on the field. How much are you going to actually utilize someone like that? You're really going to have a carved out game plan when it comes to Fannin on how you're going to deploy him. But with Mason Taylor, I feel like you just drop him in line. Dude's a competitor, adequate enough blocker, very smooth athlete, fluid athlete, showed off some good ball skills the last couple of years, was a security blanket for Garrett Nussmeier. There we go. I almost said Gus. It's the Nuss bus, not the Gus bus, the Nuss bus. But also, man, this dude's got pedigree. Jason Taylor's his daddy. Zach Thomas is his uncle. Hell yeah, sign me up, man. I'll take that. I am curious about his long speed because he just wasn't really utilized a ton downfield. He was never really a guy that was tearing it up the seams down the field. It went up a little bit this year, but I think he only had 7 targets the prior season and had 1 catch of 20 plus yards. But Mason Taylor for me kind of feels like someone that you could plug and play. And like I said with Harold Fannin, you love what he brings to the table. After the catch, 32 forced missed tackles, golly gee, 1,555 receiving yards. That's absolutely nuts. And you're going to look at that size, 6'4", 230. He doesn't have much room left to fill out on his frame. Like, he's already jacked to the gill. I don't think you're going to be adding many more pounds. So he's really going to have to be like a jumbo receiver unless you really get creative with him. Maybe have him be like an offset tight end, an H-back. You really are going to have to get creative with how you deploy him. But he is a competitor. Like, as a blocker, like, it's not ideal to put him in line just from a length and size perspective. But he's going to go out there and fight. He knows how to block. I think I'd rather use him like as a move blocker, get him in motion, and then have him go lay someone out. But what he brings just as a pure pass catcher is utterly insane. It's nuts. I am curious about how he'll test out. I think there was a little stiffness there. So I'm more concerned with not concerned, but I'm curious about how his agility drills will look at, like the 3-cone. What's the other one there? The shuttle. So curious what those might look like. And then I got Maliki. This was a guy I just watched, I think, about a month ago, because I was like, okay, I have no idea who this. I didn't know UCLA had any good prospects this year. Why is he getting a Senior Bowl invite? Let's go watch the tape. And with I think it's Mataval. That's how you say the last name, Mataval. He's a former 4-star. He went to Oregon, ends up transferring to UCLA. So there's a pedigree there, like highly sought out recruit. And he's got a really good frame at 6'6", 263. He had much improved ball skills compared to last season. He was going up and making these contested catches, making catches in traffic. So you love to see that. He's actually a pretty darn good athlete, good speed, and again, great frame. So great speed for the frame. He's shown some yak ability as well, and does a good job of finding the soft spots. Like, I'm not going to say he's like a nuanced route runner, but his route tree is a little bit bigger than your prototypical tight end route tree, crossers and such. And he's also got some alignment versatility. He aligned everywhere for UCLA this past season. Like 37% of his snaps were in the slot, 30% out wide, and 32% in line. My biggest gripe with him is just, I don't know if he's got that quote unquote dog in him. I don't think there's a real actual like physicality to his game. So like, is he going to be someone that could like go out in the run game and lay someone out? Or I think he's probably better suited to someone who can maybe sustain their block. But I'm going to worry a little bit about not necessarily the play strength, but his ability to go out and just have that NFL nasty, And I think that shows up in the contested catch a little bit with him as well. But I liked Maliki, man. I wanted to give him a shout out here.
All right, Broshmo. You switched up the tempo a little bit. I like it. I don't really have a problem with your top 4. Now, mine's a little bit different when it comes to the top 4. But I could see why you would like someone like Mason Taylor, especially because with Mason Taylor, I question the blocking a little bit, right? Well, I question the blocking, but he also went to LSU, and LSU just produces dogs when it comes to the offense, especially when it comes to receivers. And that's his exact game, a guy who's not very good at blocking, but he's going to be a really, really good receiving threat, reliable hands. Like for him, I compare him to like a Mike Gesicki, right? A guy who has some size. He's going to play tight end because of the size. Not much of a blocker, but a good receiver.
A little bit more dog in his game than Gesicki. Like Gesicki, being a former Dolphin, I think he was just a soft player.
Gesicki 2.0. Gesicki elite.
I think he is 2-ply.
Gucci Gesicki, 2-ply Gesicki.
Yeah, I think this is Gesicki plus.
Exactly. And so I could definitely see, so I have Taylor a little bit lower, but I can see why you would put him higher, especially because of what I think scout and what the NFL prioritizes, especially. So just when it comes to number 5, Maliki there, I didn't even have it in my top 7. I didn't have him on top 7. So, he could rise up draft boards. I see some of the hype around him, but there's definitely a few guys that I would have personally put there first, but we can see what he does during the process. What does he do, at the combine? What does he do at the Senior Bowl? Because those are going to be moments where he can rise his draft stock. We know that the NFL, we know that the process of free agency and the draft is what have you done for me lately, not what did you once do. I don't care what you did at the beginning of 2024. I don't care what you did at 2023. I care what you did at the end of 2024 and what you're doing leading up to the draft. So that stock could potentially rise depending on how he overall tests and performs during this pre-draft process. But Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll start with number 5 with Maliki there. I'll be honest, haven't really heard much of Maliki when it comes to the remainder of these top of the tight end classes. That is quite an impressive frame, though. 6'6",
Yeah.
265. I mean, that is pretty dang impressive for anyone to be that size and be able to, do some of the things that he's able to do. Yeah, the production's just not quite there in comparison to some of the other tight ends that I would have up there. Again, a lot of factors go into it. I never really like to make it totally about statistics, but that does concern me a little bit. But again, anyone can make it the next level if they, are in the right system and get the right amount of people around them. Your top four, I mean, that's probably very close to about what I would expect most people to have it at, or potentially have it to where Gunner might go over Harold Fannin, or Gunner would go at Maliki's spot there. So, again, Tyler at number one. The great thing about Tyler, you mentioned his run blocking. Again, it has nothing to do with the fact that he doesn't love run blocking. Like, I saw plenty of blocks. I mean, I watched the Ohio State game the first time around. I mean, he lit up Sony Styles, who's a 6'4", 235-pound linebacker, and he lit him up. I've seen the clip where they're playing against Boise State or against SMU, and he pushed that defensive end for SMU back 15 yards into the end zone. Like, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, again, the fundamentals and everything that goes into it, you can teach a guy that. You can teach him to do that, but, he's got the frame and he loves actually engaging with them, which is, again, a vital aspect of it, because blocking, just like tackling, it's not about skill. It's about actually wanting to do it. And no doubt that Tyler Warren actually wants to do it, just needs to be taught a little bit better in some areas. But yeah, I have no issue with the list.
All right, there you go, Broshmo. You guys let us know what you think about Broshmo's list in the comment section below. And so far, whose list is better? We've only gotten through two, but we want to know. Before we get into mine, might as well just break down Dose's list. We can flame him because he's not here, so we don't have to worry about hurting his feelings. It's not as bad as I thought. We've seen some crazy lists from Dose in the past. This isn't as bad as I thought. Broshmo, let's start with you. What do you think about Dose's list?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it with Gunner. Like, not ahead of guys like Fannin and Taylor. Like, Helms, he's come up in big moments, but I don't know. Maybe it's just this, like, I wasn't a big Jared Wiley guy. And when I went and watched Helms tape, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Jared Wiley all over again. And Wiley, I ended up having a 4th round grade on. So that might be just a bias on my part. But I think typically these are the 5 tight ends you're going to see. I think Helm belongs in that probably tier with guys like Maliki. You got like Terrence Ferguson. I don't know if Mitchell Evans decided to declare yet. I think he still gets to make that decision based on the national championship. But he's a guy coming off of injury that was pretty darn good last season. But yeah, I don't got too many issues with this list. I think he's got the right 2 names at the beginning, and those last 2, it's like you just got question marks. Like, hey, I want to put Fannin. I wish I had the gonads to put Fannin higher. The
gonads. It's
like, I look at that 6'4", 230, and I'm just like,
I will ride or die with my boy Harold Fannin, dude. Talons up, baby. BG, let's go.
For me, it comes down to, do you trust an NFL team to make use of someone like this? And it's like, I could probably count on 1 to 2 fingers NFL teams I would trust with a guy with the skill set of Fannin, with the body type of Fannin. And it's just like, we typically don't see those guys succeed. And that's the only reason, like, I don't have him over a Mason Taylor. Or you could even make a case over a Colson Loveland.
Yeah, this also could just come down to preference. We don't really know exactly why Dion put these guys where he did. Stepping into Dion's shoes for a minute, I'm just assuming the fact that he likes more of an all-around tight end, a guy who can both block and receive, and maybe that's why he put Taylor a little bit lower. Again, I do believe that I believe that teams in a league where you need an offense to succeed, it is a pass-first league. If you cannot have a adequate and consistent passing offense, you're just not going to contend. You're not going to be consistent enough to make the postseason and make an actual run and hang with the top dogs, which is why I have Mason Taylor a little bit higher, and I think teams could view him higher. I think he could test well during the draft process, but I'm assuming that Dion is kind of just taking these more all-around tight ends a little bit higher.
Here's the thing. I'll go one more here in defense of Harold Fanning because I want to go over the numbers again. And
I'm not an enemy. I just want to make this clear. I'm
not calling you out. Okay. I'm calling it out for the fact that almost everyone else here has him at 4, and the fact that the majority of people are probably going to be saying it as well, including me. Again, 1,600 yards is not something to look away from. And people will say, oh, he played against MAC schools. Sure. But guess what? In the 2 games where he played against Tyler Warren's Penn State, and then the next week after played Texas A&M at their building, he combined in those 2 games for 20 catches for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. In those 2 games against real elite competition, 2 defenses that are going to see guys go to the league. And he did exactly the same thing he did to them as he did to every other MAC school. So again, the whole competition thing, it's not there. The numbers get misconstrued. It's not. He literally did it against the best of the best. Penn State, who might have one of the top 5 best defenses in the entire college football landscape. BG's weapons, they had 2 receivers missing that game. They knew the ball was going to Harold Fanning, and they still couldn't stop him.
They couldn't run in that Penn State game either.
Just how good they are. He is with that.
That's fair. I think also when it comes to Gunnar Helm, I think what teams are going to like about him is one that size. I mean, 6'5", 250 pounds. He works well through contact. I don't think he's necessarily a great blocker. I think that's a part to his game he still has to develop, but he shows flashes. I think those are going to be the things that teams like. And when I was doing my due diligence on him, I wanted to learn a little bit more about him. This was a guy that I didn't really know too much heading into the process. I saw a lot of Pat Freiermuth as his pro comp. What do you guys think about that? I would say probably not as good of a blocker right now. But...
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like,
who's not as good of a blocker?
Gunnar Helm as Pat Freiermuth.
I just can't get Noah Gray out of my mind, dude. I see Gunnar Helm. I see Noah Gray, which is a good. Hey, dude, he got a second contract with the Chiefs. He's a very good tight end too, and I don't know. Maybe he ends up being the Kelsey heir apparent.
I look at Gunnar Helm, and I don't see anything that blows me away. I just don't see he's consistent, at least with Warren, with Loveland, with Fannin, and with Taylor, I can sit here and specifically say one thing that maybe separates them versus Helm. But for Helm, I mean, he's just the guy that does everything good. There's nothing that really stands out in the film. And like you said, Broshmo, he could be a guy that is a day 2 pick and someone's going to be like, we need some depth at the tight end room. This is a guy that we feel confident is definitely going to come in. It gets a little bit of coaching and he's going to be a good tight end in our room. But I just don't see the appeal for Helm at the highest point. I don't think his ceiling is as high as everybody else's on this list.
Yeah, and I pushed him up my board just because of the special teams. He has more special team snaps than any other tight end in this class. So it's he brings that to wherever he goes on top of being good depth. So I just don't see him in that next tier with guys like Fannin or Taylor. Obviously you have Fannin 1B, 1A, so it's kind of a different realm, but
hey guys, look, will you let us know about what you think of Dose's list in the comment section below? He's not here right now, so if you really hate it and you want to flame him, don't worry about hurting his feelings because he's not going to see it anyway. Let us know in the comment section below. I think you guys have broken these prospects down really, really well, but this is my list. I feel like I went a pretty safe route, right? I feel like you look at this list and you're like, you know what? I can't hate anything about this list. There might be little things I can nitpick here and there, but I can at least understand where you're coming from. boy, oh boy, did I want to put Colson Loveland at number 1. I was telling these guys before we hopped on, I was like, I saw everybody's list. I was really about to switch up the tempo and put Colson Loveland at number 1.
In a hypothetical world,
Mm.
I could see Loveland in one way, shape, or form being the number 1.
And you know what? At one point he was at one point, and then Warren just came on when it mattered the most. And then I don't want to say he has necessarily solidified himself as tight end 1. There's all process to still go through, but it's more likely than not he is going to be number 1. I saw what Loveland did, with Michigan in the playoffs last year, and that's just when I fell in love with this dude. And I still think he's going to be a really good prospect, but you obviously understand why Tyler Warren is number 1. I am an absolute hoe, dude. I'm an absolute hoe when it comes to these big tight ends, like 6'3", 6'4". That's cool. That's all right. But I had Rob Gronkowski for years, man. I want the 6'6", 250-pound tight end, and Tyler Warren is exactly that, 6'6", 257 pounds. A lot of you guys in the comment section below asking, well, what are your pro comps for this guy? And I kind of made the comparison earlier. I'm going to stay by this. I see some Mark Andrews with him, right? He's not necessarily someone who's super fast, but he's like a classic inline tight end. He can stay back and block for you an entire game, and he's going to do it at a high level. He can go out. He can run routes. He can work through contact. He can demand, double, triple coverage and still make plays there. So that would be my pro comp for him. Like I said, really good ball tracking too. You like that one, Broshmo?
I like that one.
It's not too bad. Yeah, I'd say Warren is a slightly better athlete than Andrews, but yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, very athletic too, Derek. You put that very well. Very athletic tight end. And a lot of times when you see tight ends that are this big, you see tight ends that are really good at blocking. Like I said, a guy that can literally stay back for the entire game and block. A lot of times those guys, they lack some athleticism, but he doesn't do that. Like, he's definitely a freak of nature, which is why a lot of people have him at tight end 1 as this process goes on. Now, Colson Loveland, another guy with some pretty good size, just not as good as Tyler Warren, 6'5", 245 pounds. I believe my pro comp for Loveland, if I remember correctly, it was like shades of Dallas Goedert. What do you guys think about that? Dalton Kincaid, I've heard you guys say some shades of Dallas Goedert. I think has to work on the blocking a little bit more, but some shades of Dallas Goedert in my mind.
I could see that.
You guys see that one?
It's a great route runner. I mean, he's up there with Fannin and Warren when it comes to like pure route running skills. That's about where he gets it from.
You know what? Sticking with South Dakota State, how about Tucker Kraft?
Ooh. Okay.
That just popped into my head. I was like, okay, you know what? Because I feel like Goddard got a little bit more heft to him.
Tucker Kraft's underrated too.
Oh man,
people are gonna hear you say Tucker Kraft and be like, oh, like Tucker Kraft, and you have Loveland in the first round. Like, Tucker Kraft's underrated.
I mean, he put Luke Musgrave on the bench, who was drafted ahead of him. So
exactly. Loveland, I think, is a guy again with that playoff experience too, which I think is going to help him coming out of Michigan too. Hands, hands got to be a little bit better, right? Hands got to be a little bit better.
Yeah, Tucker Kraft coming out, he had some puzzling drops. Like, it wasn't just focus drops. It was just like, what is it? Because like you saw the ball skills, like there were some highlight reel catches, but then there was just like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, as long as he goes to the right team, right? As long as he goes to the right team, they can kind of coach it out of him. So it's not something you're too worried about. Because he's shown the potential to have really, really good, sticky, reliable hands in the past too. It's just those inconsistencies where you see some drops and you're just like, how the hell does that happen? You see him go up and make a play in triple coverage, and then he drops a wide open pass with nobody around him. It makes no sense. So again, goes to the right situation. Maybe that's something that gets coached out of him by a team. When it comes to Fannin, though, this is a guy that I think, again, could climb draft boards. Derek, I understand your love for him. I see why you do. I don't think he's ever going to surpass number 1 and number 2 for me, but I think he can definitely solidify himself there at number 3. 6'4", 230 pounds. Guys make that size work all the time in the NFL. Like I said, I don't know what it is, but when I see a tight end that's not 6'5", 6'6", immediately you just start losing points in my mind personally. I don't know what it is.
I don't understand where that comes from. It's like, it's like all of a sudden, if they're not 6'5" or 6'6", and they don't weigh 300 pounds, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, he can't block. Like, Travis Kelce can't block. You think that matters when he plays? No, that doesn't matter. All you need to do is chip shot people. That's all you need to do. You ain't got to do nothing else.
Hey, man, size matters. And I like size to a tight end, an inline tight end who can, go out wide and line up as your X receiver, can line up at inline tight end. And it doesn't matter if you put your tallest defensive back or linebacker on this dude. He's just going to go up, put his hand up, and just body you while you're trying to climb the ladder against him. And he's going to catch that with one pinky and then just pat you on the head after when you tried your best job at defending him, but you couldn't. That's why I like size. I don't know what it is. I like it. But when it comes to Fannin, this is a guy with good speed. And for tight end, I think that there is value in that. He's a willing blocker, reliable hands. Like I said earlier, I feel like Isaiah Likely for me is a pretty good comp. I think depending on where he goes will be dependent on the type of career he has, the type of development that he has. I think that he's a guy that can come out. He can make some really splashy plays that you're going to hear about. You're going to see the NFL post. You're going to see NFL tweet. It's going to be on highlight reels all over social media, but he's never necessarily going to be that like number one tight end. He's never going to be like your David Njoku type of guys where he truly takes over as a top 10 and number one guy for a franchise. But let's see, what's my number 4? My number 4, Mason Taylor. I kind of alluded to this one earlier. I don't really have too much more to say about this. Really, really good hands. Like that he's coming out of LSU, a team that's been just known and dominant at developing and producing wide receivers. I know that he's a tight end, but to me, he's like a wide receiver that just so happens to play tight end. 6'5", 255 pounds. I think he has flashes at being able to block, but he hasn't put it all together. So I think the team he goes to is more so getting a receiving threat immediately straight off the bat. And then when it comes to somebody like Gunnar Helm, I kind of touched upon this one too, 6'5", 250 pounds. Pat Fryer move, but like not as good of a blocker, right? Like this is a guy that I think needs some development, but if he goes to the right situation, they develop him correctly, he has the ability to be, I don't want to say a high end number one tight end, but I think he could be like a low end number one tight end for a team. I could see that. He's a guy that can stay on the field for all 3 downs. He has the ability to block. It just needs to be developed. He has the ability as a receiver. He can make really good contested catches. He has the ability to track the ball through the air. So again, bringing that size, the potential he has together, it wasn't very hard for me to put him at number 5. Broshmo, what do you think about the list?
I think this is typically what you're going to see with most lists, probably. I'm not going to lie, dude. Derek's... I think you may have sold me on Fannin ahead of Mason Taylor, dude.
Hop aboard the Harold Fannin hype train, Broshmo. It's
I
never
want to
too
be
late,
there.
dude. It's never too late. Listen, I said it about Brock Bowers. I knew he was going to be something when he came into this league. People were trying to tell me that injury was a concern and all these other things. His game would not translate. And I usually have one guy in this draft process where I sit back and I say, that guy is going to be very, very good when he gets in the league. Harold Fannin is that guy. Ignore the bias, okay? I've watched every game. I've watched every snap. I've watched this man dominate everybody on the field. It doesn't matter who it is. Hop aboard the train, bro. Man, everyone can
I've been thinking about that the last 5 minutes. I was like, oh, man, dude. I do like Fannin, man.
So where would you put Fannin? Would you change anything, Broshmo?
On this list, now that it's looking very similar to mine, that I've moved Fannin up midstream.
By the way, this was Broshmo's list before, for those who didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair with like Helm, I think he's in the same tier as a guy like Malicki. And I think I shouted out like Mitchell Evans. I think those guys are in similar tiers. It just depends on what you're looking for. I actually love the comp you threw out for Fannin, Isaiah Likely. Someone who was very productive at Coastal Carolina and then kind of bundled. I can't remember if it was at the Combine or his pro day and just didn't test out that fast. But I mean, looking at him when given opportunities at Baltimore, man, has made the most of them. So like there are going to be a few spots there for Fannin in the NFL. It's just, I don't know if I trust the NFL to get it right. So often do we see these like a Kyle Pitts, man. That guy should have been way more productive than he has been. And granted, some of that's been on him. I think this year he was put in the right situations and it's kind of been 50-50. But like early on, man, Arthur Smith just fumbled the bag with him. So it's like, I don't know how much I trust the NFL, specifically with the tight end position, to carve out a role specifically for a tight end, at least in the passing game.
And the last point I'll make on it is, yeah, you're right. It does matter where these guys end up. It really matters what systems they end up in. You know, for me, I may like Fannin so much more because for the Indianapolis Colts sake, we do not have a receiving tight end that can consistently get open, make yards after the catch, break tackles, just consistently make catches. And Fannin and Warren just meet every box for me when it comes to everything that a Colts player specifically needs. And that's why I'm like, hop aboard that train with me, man, because like that stuff translates everywhere. He doesn't, I don't know if there's like, if you're a more run heavy team, I can understand it. The Indianapolis Colts, unironically enough, are a more heavy run team, but with the fact that we have so few issues in the tight end room with having guys that can actually catch, I would very much like to have a guy that has for sure hands that I don't have to worry about. So that would be nice.
I mean, to be fair, Jelani Woods has been like on IR for 2 years.
Jelani Woods has been on IR for 2 years. Kylan Granson drops every other ball.
That's the role right there, too.
Ogletree drops touchdown passes and commits holds. Mo Cox, who's getting paid $6 million a year, catches like 20 passes and doesn't contribute in the offense in any way besides blocking. And Will Mallory, who you drafted 2 years ago, that you were like, oh, I may actually like this guy because he's really, really fast. They don't even play him half the time. He's a healthy scratch. So it's like Ballard this whole offseason were like, we like our guys in the tight end room. No, you don't. If you do, you're an idiot because you suck at your job for not being able to get a tight end that knows how to catch or stay healthy. Like, Jesus.
Tell us how you really feel, Derek. There you go. That's how you really feel,
Sorry, man. I'm just so passionate about this, man. I love these tight ends. And, you know, as an Indianapolis Colts fan, I'm dying to have a tight end that actually is going to do the job for me.
It's a good class, man. We could probably go 10 deep on this list,
easy.
Because there's a lot of good ones.
That edge rusher, running back, we could easily do like
the defensive line is like one of the most
in general.
Yeah.
But hey, guys, look, this is where we're going to end it off for today's video. Let us know in the comment section below whose list was right, who was wrong, whose are you rocking with, and let us know in order who is the best and then whose was the worst in order between me, Derek, Broshmo, and Dose. On your way out, guys, please make sure to leave a big like on the video. Show some love. Share the video of Draftaholics, baby. We are live every single Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern right here on Roundtable Sports main YouTube channel. We'll continue to break down these prospects, but very, very soon we're going to start doing mock drafts, baby, because that is where it's at. That's where your guys have the interest. We're going to do mock drafts where we stay pat and mock drafts where we trade a lot of different situations to help you guys learn a little bit more about these prospects. This is your one-stop shop for everything involving the 2025 NFL Draft. On your way out, guys, make sure you subscribe not just to this YouTube channel, but also to our individual channels. I cover the New England Patriots. Derek, you cover the Indianapolis Colts. Dose covers the Detroit Lions. And Broshmo does everything. Broshmo mainly covers the draft, prospect breakdowns, mock drafts, mock the mock. But you also do a lot of other stuff. I mean, you break down the Senior Bowl,
I do, but no one cares about that.
All that good stuff. You break down, free agents, all that good stuff. So Broshmo is your one-stop shop for just everything involving just football in general. So big shout out to Broshmo, man.
Dude. Fannin.
Fannin. Wait, hold on. Which one? Where is it?
The last one.
This one?
Yeah.
Fannin.
I love it.
Hey, there we go, Brandon. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Derek got everybody on the Fannin trade. If this guy starts rising draft boards, Derek's the one that told you guys about it first. But everybody, until next time, we appreciate you for tuning in to Draftaholics.